Sounds good.
I can't wait. Hello, everybody. It's me, Naomi. That's not important. Tonight, we are talking about Survivor New York Veterans versus Contenders, Episode 7, the most dramatic episode yet. I am here joined by the host, our Lord and Savior. It's Chris Lord. How are you?
I'm great. So excited for this one.
Mm-hmm.
I say that every week, but yeah, this one is a very exciting one for sure.
This episode brought and can you imagine all of us at midnight just being like, oh my god, shit is hitting the fan so hard. This is like only day one. But joining us to talk about the chaos, he wasn't there, so we get to hear all of the opinions. It's Ben from We Could Get Everything, but also from season 1. Ben, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to talk about this very fun season so far. Very fun episode to be talking about. I think there's a lot to get into.
Oh, we have so much to talk about, and thank goodness he's here to talk about it with us. It's Dresden, the Instagram icon himself. Dresden, how are you? Everyone's dying to know.
I'm good. It's been pretty good. It's been about almost like 2 years since we were there playing the game, and y'all were production, and it was an adventure. So.
It 2 years. It's crazy that this season's even coming out, but that's my favorite part of the season is people getting to see the people that we cast who we're friends with and getting to be fans of you. And I think, Dresden, you have a lot of fans because people really enjoyed your presence on this season. How was it to kind of see everybody talking about you and being so excited about you on the show?
It was at first it was a little overwhelming just because I didn't expect to get the responses I did. I mean, it's evident that I am a country boy, well, not really a country boy, but a boy that lives in the South, going to take a risk and playing Survivor with a bunch of New Yorkers. I don't know. The fact that people were able to see where I was coming from during my journey of the game, it was overwhelming, but I am grateful for the responses that I did get. Mm-hmm. And I think I made people proud. Or try.
I think you did. I think what's really great about your journey is like you could tell from the very beginning, like confessionals, you were very quiet, you were a little bit nervous, you're a little bit intimidated. But as the game went on, I feel like you kind of like opened up a lot more, and you just felt more comfortable as a person, as a player, with all these strangers. And you know what's interesting for you specifically is that this was a true Survivor experience. You did not know a single person going in the game. So it really was like that true, like grit Survivor game for you. And I think you did great.
Absolutely. Dresden, you found us off Instagram and you like took the chance to come play. First of all, Ben, I want to know if you would ever apply to a game you saw on Instagram, or like how much courage that takes for someone to do. Because I thought it was the most insane thing I'd ever heard of, and I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not off of Instagram. I know you guys got people off of Reddit as well. I think like Emily from season 3 came off of Reddit, something like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I would ever. Maybe like off Facebook is usually where the games I've found in the past. But yeah, usually when it comes to live reality games, I just have people like Chris calling me up the night before saying, "Hey, I have an extra slide. You want to come out and play?"
That's true.
So, to give everyone like the scoop of like what happened. So it was just, I think I was like just enjoying a day off of work. I was bored. I think I forgot what season of Survivor was airing at the time, but I wanted to see like if anybody like posted anything about it. So like I put hashtag Survivor in my search engine of on Instagram, and then I saw this post of Survivor New York, and it's like a game, an actual LRG that takes place in New York, and they were casting at the time. And I was like, I kind of want to do that. That sounds like a lot of fun. So I applied, had an interview with Naomi, and then now I'm sitting here with you guys because I played the game.
Yes. I had to tell you, first of all, I'm so glad to know that me hashtagging the post like Survivor 38 like worked. You know what I mean? Like, thank God that worked for something. But also, the minute I got off the call with you, I like messaged Chris and I was like, Dresden's on the cast. Like, there's no question about it. Like, you got it. Like, make sure. We knew instantly. And it was so much fun. And I feel like there was always a part of me that was worried that you were going to get a little scared about coming to play. It's a huge risk, right? It's a huge risk to travel and potentially get voted out first, I think, is always everyone's biggest fear. And I was like, we can't lose Dresden. Like, we need to make sure that Dresden comes and plays this season. That was always one of my, like, big fears, is that you would, like, text us 2 days before and be like, I can't come.
Yeah, I was worried about that too. But, like, your audition tape was just great. And I think we just loved the way you talk, your accent, like, it just, everything about you was just like check mark, like right off the bat. And it was like instant. Everyone else, like, you know, it took maybe like a couple days, no offense or anything, but like that was instant.
No offense. So I do not want any text messages about what Chris just said sent to me. But so I'm curious, like, Ben, you got to play with Dresden a little bit in the sequester game, right? I just want to know, like, I want to know your thoughts, and I also kind of want to know, like, what you thought about Dresden in the early game, like, especially in this beginning as a contender, as somebody who's never done one of these, like, in person before.
Yeah, no, Dresden was somebody, when you guys came on Brian and my podcast in the preseason to talk about this season, and we went over the cast, Dresden was one of the people that I pointed out that I was very excited to watch play, just because I think that he would bring, like, a different energy because of, like, the limited interaction we had in the sequester, and from, like, watching that game, he was just super funny and fun. So I thought that he would have, like, a very strong social game. And yeah, I love Dresden like everybody else watching the show. He was like probably the best underdog story you could want from, like, a pre-merge. And I think he was like one of, if not like the big stars of the pre-merge in terms of, like, the storyline. And it's very sad that he, like, missed the merge by 1 vote. And it's very, it's like, definitely our all-star contender though.
Okay.
that does hurt me so much that he was so close to the merge. It's like, because Naomi actually brought up that twist idea about, you know, going back to the 3 tribes, and we're gonna do the double tribal. And I think, you know, Jordan kind of was like also agreeing with that. And I was like, okay, this is really gonna screw somebody over. But I think it's gonna be extremely dramatic because we're gonna have 2 people be elected as the leaders and have them choose 2 people to take off their tribe, throw them off and form a new tribe. And then 2 of the tribes are going to go to tribal council together to vote 1 person out. So it's very complicated, but very interesting. And I never thought in a million years that a fan favorite like Dresden would be the victim of all of this.
Well, here's the thing. I think that the twist actually... I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was like, yes, surprise twist.
Yeah. Well, I think the twist actually almost saved Dresden, because I think if you didn't do the twist, I think Dresden would 100% have been gone.
Yeah,
because I think that team still probably would have won immunity before the swap. And at that point, it was like 4v2. With the twist, it kind of gave you like a lease of life. And if Alejandro hadn't found that last minute idol, you guys would have won the vote.
Because we had Emily's vote still, and then me and Emily were able to convince Sarah and Jack to vote with us. And I'm grateful that they even did, because the look on their faces, like now that I'm like rewatching everything, the look on their faces while everyone was whispering, like playing the whisper game or whatever you want to call it, like they looked so unsure. And like I just remember going through that and just thinking, like, I would go, like, I hope these people go to rocks for me. And the fact they even like voted for me and Emily played her vote still to try to save me, at least, like, it meant a lot.
Yeah, and I think this is like a great example of an opportunity to make allies. And I think that's what Jack and Sarah saw it as. And Sarah and Emily do know each other from Survivor Buffalo season 1. And I think that they were both bringing in sort of Jack and you and said, like, this is a good 4. Let's work with this 4. And it didn't even register to me how much of this tribal council was just the pink tribe looking at each other and be like, are you going to vote with us or are we going to vote with you? And it is really, I think, the core of this. And now Alex says that Dresden would have been fine if they didn't reveal it to the other tribe who they're voting for. And while this is correct, I want to bring up later some of the strategy about this and why I understand why this all kind of goes wrong. But look, if Alejandro didn't find that idol, if Billy or TJ had taken the leap like one tribal council before, it wouldn't have been there and they would have had the votes. It didn't matter. So let's, Dresden, talk about the early game, first of all, because you find this idol right off the bat. It's one of my favorite scenes where you just walk over, like, pluck it and run away, and I love it so much. Talk to me about finding this idol and like what was going through your head in the first 5 minutes.
When we got put into our initial tribes, I just remember looking at everybody that was on my tribe and thinking, oh shit, I didn't really talk to anybody like the night before. Like I was like, I think the night before I really only like bonded with Sarah mostly.
Mm-hmm.
I was like a little shy. I was like I was like outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
A lot of these people like are from this area, and then here's me driving 10 hours from North Carolina to play Survivor with New York. So I didn't know what to think, and I was still processing everything. So we get in our original tribes, and I'm just thinking like I haven't really vibed with any of these people, and I don't really have a first impression on them yet. So I want to find an idol. And then, so whenever Emily finds the first idol, that kind of like lit the fire under my ass to like, I was like, and you could probably see my facial expression when she finds idol of the rice. I was just like, oh shit. Like I could be in trouble. Cause I know I wasn't vibing with a lot of people and I just was still in my shell. But whenever we found the clue to another idol, even though Liska read it, I knew it was something that I still wanted for myself. And so I took the initiative to be in front of everyone when we were on our way to the site of where we thought the idol was. And I was just thinking, as soon as I see this shit, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to grab it and I'm not going to feel sorry. Like, I was like unapologetic about the whole situation. And that's exactly what I did. I saw it under the table. I slipped under there, didn't say anything, just grabbed it, put it in my pocket. And then at the end was like, I got it because it was my idol.
Well, I want to know, Ben, watching this whole season kind of like play out, like, would you have done what Dresden did and go for that idol like right off the bat? Or would you, because I think like Sam and like TJ and Billy kind of stay back and don't really go for it. Like Lisa and Paddock, which is hilarious, has one idol, is like, might as well go get a second, like walks over there. What do you think you would have done in that moment?
It's tricky at the very start of the game. I think like maybe a few rounds in, if you're like feeling in good position, maybe I would be more bold to do that. But I don't know. I'm definitely, and we talked about it at the start of the season, I'm definitely the kind of player who plays like as safe as possible for at least the first few rounds to get my feet under me. But I mean, you know, I'd rather the idol in my pocket than somebody else's, I guess. But you know.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
And Dresden, you guys lose the first challenge. And there's Billy says I was peeing, to be honest. All right, Billy, thanks. But Dresden, when you lost this first challenge, and what I think is interesting in the edit and talking to everybody is nobody wants to vote you out this round because you have the idol, but they're talking about voting you out next round and making you feel safe enough where if they needed to go to tribal council again, they would vote for you and make sure you didn't play your idol. How does that feel thinking about it? Like, you survived one vote, but maybe they would have lost again. I want to know what your perspective is on if the Orange Tribe ever went to tribal council again in the early game.
Well, I will say, like, playing the game, being inside the game, like, of course, no one's going to say that to me. And I was just thinking, if we were to go to tribal council again, we might just vote for Liska and just keep the tribe strong. But now watching it and see how like every single person had the idea of wanting me to be gone sooner than later, I'm just like, damn, Al Guaquin or y'all weren't with me. But it's totally understandable, like why they would feel that way, because I wasn't communicating like I should have. I wasn't putting all my cards on the table, and I was a little bit more. I was probably the most reserved on our tribe.
Yeah.
And
I think so.
I could see how other people can perceive that to be like very scary, and I could be seen as a wild card, just being as risky as I was in the game.
I think that it goes to show something. The most like people who play LRGs are people that are maybe very shy, very intimidated people, and they really do want to branch out. Like I would consider myself that, and I know a lot of other people in LRGs, maybe even some of the hosts also, want to break out of their shells, and they use LRGs as a tool to do that. And I think you are sort of an example for that, and you did that, and it sort of affects your strategy going into the game for the first time. And I think going forward in the future, if you ever were to play an LRG, you would not go through that experience the same, because now you know the steps you need to take to avoid those situations. So I think it's very interesting because it plays into the politics of like how introverted people play LRGs. And, you have introverted parts too, but I see you on Instagram. You're very extroverted too. You're very wild and bubbly as well. So it's like there are sides of you that open up.
I think overall, I'm a wild card just because there's certain things, like I have a comfort zone. We all do.
Yeah.
And there's some things that break me out of it, but sometimes I have different, like I might have like a different response to it. I might not respond to it well. And I will say at the beginning of the game, I was a little bit more to my shell, and my responses to things probably weren't the best. And that's what made me a target early on. But I think as the game went on, I was slowly breaking out of that shell. And in the event that I would have made it to merge, I really think that would have officially came out of the shell and did some damage.
Well, I also think like it's I did something similar where I played a game where I was like, I definitely won't know anybody there. It will be a real leap of faith. And you kind of sit there and you're like, I feel like an outsider because of all these things that other people share in common that I don't. And it takes that period of like getting over it to feel like you actually belong. And if you get voted out too early, you feel like you never belonged in the first place. But if you can take your time and work your way in, I think, unfortunately, like what ended up happening for you is because we swapped in this moment where you lost everybody that you were working with, or like you lost Liska, and then Paddock was there, but you and Paddock were sort of okay, but you were under fire this whole time. You didn't really get the ability to create the bonds that I think would have happened in the merge when people would have gotten to like know you better. And you just kind of were unfortunately making enemies because you were just not getting voted out. Like, it's not your fault. You were trying to survive, and like you just kept making enemies accidentally. It was really funny. I loved that. So let's talk about this swap moment, because Dresden. Oh, first of all, I love Chris, when you edited Dresden's highlight reel, it was so funny because it's so good. You like all these different like highs and lows, but the throwing of the thing when you win the round in the last episode is one of my favorite moments in a challenge, because you're just like,
I was like over everything at that point. And so me throwing the thing kind of came from like frustration of just like everything that I've had to put up with to that point. And so I was just like, I think we were already behind too, because we were 3. They were 3.
Yeah, we were gonna. If you guys didn't, I think you maybe start off the winning points, but like if you didn't win, you would have been gone.
Yeah.
Like,
and so like whenever I beat Jack, I was just like, fuck yeah, like, like who's gonna check me? Like that's what I was thinking about.
So Ben, I want to know what you think about this swap, and I think the decisions that Billy and Kyle are forced to make, because we really tricked them with this. We were like, let's just make it sound like they're picking a tribe leader for a challenge, but really we're going to split the tribes up this way. What we really wanted to do was force them to make a public choice and really draw lines in the sand, which they're still mad at me to this day about. But Ben, how do you feel about the decisions that Billy and Kyle eventually make?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think both of the decisions are probably the ones that I expected in hindsight. Because when I was watching it, I didn't really understand how it was working until it was already happening. So I didn't really have a chance to like pre-think of like, oh, this is what I expect them to do. But when they started picking and I kind of realized what was going on, I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. This is who I would expect them to have picked. Just because for basically the reasons that were said that on the original or the Orange Tribe, I believe.
Yeah.
Was that the Orange Tribe is the one with where it was
they had just lost.
Yes. Yeah. So that makes sense that there's 3 pairs on each tribe basically. So you're basically choosing the pair that you're considering like the weakest or the one that you're like the least socially integrated with. And so for Bennett, or was it Bennett or was it Billy?
Billy.
It
was Billy. Okay. So Billy, it kind of makes sense. He's going to obviously keep TJ. So he's basically choosing, do I get rid of Kai and Bennett or do I get rid of Sarah and Jack? And they just lost the challenge. It makes sense for, I think, him to keep Bennett because Bennett's like clearly the best challenge performer on that tribe. And then from the other tribe, I think it makes sense for Kyle to, when at that point, it was pretty abundantly clear to everybody that it was 4v2 and the 2 were unfortunately Paddock and Dresden, that they would be the ones to be kind of kicked off the tribe. So,
yeah. I think that something that I brought up, I think a little bit to Sarah when I saw her this weekend as well, but I'm curious what maybe your thoughts on this, Dresden, were, is that like, if I was Kyle, I would think for a second about sending Davey or Alejandro over when you see that Jack is there, because in your brain, you're like, well, that's a pink, player. They haven't said anything bad about them, so they must feasibly get along with them. Maybe I put a pink person on that tribe and keep Paddock here to repair my bonds with Paddock, potentially give Sarah and Jack 3-on-1 if like, if it was one tribe losing. So this was my thought of like, maybe Alejandro or Davey should have gone to this tribe of 4 rather than Paddock. I don't know if anybody disagrees with me on that or not, but I'm thinking that maybe could have been an out for Kyle.
Well, somebody commented on the YouTube, I think it was Kristen. She had said, why would they make that difficult decision? Because we hadn't announced that 2 tribes are going to tribal council yet. So it could have been 3 tribes, 1 tribe of 4 goes to tribal council. And if Billy or Kyle's tribe lose, it's now 2 versus 2 on both tribes. And it would have went to deadlock tie, and there would have been either, rocks or challenge. So it does bring up that interesting point about that. But I'm assuming Billy and Kyle foresaw that it was going to be a double tribal. But if it wasn't, one of them would have been screwed for sure, I think.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm kind of coming from. And Jack says, I would have gone so hard for a new pink Final Four. and this is, I think, the interesting thing that comes out of this game and out of this moment in the game, I should say, is like this new pink, I think, is the underdog tribe. You guys even say it yourself. And Dresden, how did you feel when you got put on this new tribe?
At first, I was a little angry to be like put on the tribe by Kyle, because I don't think it was like shown. Well, maybe it was shown a little bit, but whenever after like the Emily blindside, like Kyle was like always like in my, and I think I made a confession about it. He was like really like in my face about like wanting to work together, even being aware that we had voted for each other. And I just thought it was like complete bullshit. And him placing me and Paddock on the new tribe, it was basically the confirmation that I needed to know that he was on some bullshit.
Yeah, Alex says it right here. I love Dresden's confessionals calling out how fake Kyle was after a tribal council. And it's interesting. I think that Kyle was trying to like get ahead of the ball, because he's basically trying to say like, look, I'm sorry, we're being manipulated, but then is also kind of like, but I will keep voting for you.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Like, of course, like when you vote for somebody and they don't go home, of course you want to cover your ass. So like I get where like I was coming from, but the fact that he just like did it every freaking time, So like, it just after a while, it's just like we get it, Kyle.
I know. Yeah, Kyle says me and Justin for SNY arrivals. This is what is this, the challenge?
I gotta do it. Now I have to do it.
Well, with that in mind, I think that's an interesting way to talk about like how do you handle like the aftermath of voting for somebody and then playing an idol and like staying, right? And it's like, do you own it and say, yeah, I voted for you, I want you to leave, and kind of just like hope that the honesty gives you some respect? Or do you do the like, oh, my hand was forced, I didn't actually want to, and like kind of come off as like semi-fake? Like I think just being upfront, and like I think that's probably a way that most people would at least find, you know, more respectful and more like willing to actually, you know, maybe hear you out and be like, okay, now we can move forward from this. Now you're coming at me as an equal now, right? You're not kind of trying to bullshit me.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Dresden, on that same note. If Kyle hadn't come up to you and hadn't said like, oh, you know, after the Liska vote, oh, Pink was really like trying to get me to vote with them, would you have voted for Emily, or would you have maybe thought about voting for Kyle? Like, does Kyle's apology tour affect the way that you essentially blindside Emily later the next vote?
I honestly think we would have voted for Emily anyway, because while I wasn't being as social as I needed to be, I was still, my eyes were still moving and looking at things. Even during my confessionals, I was just like,
oh yeah, you're always
like, because I just wanted to be in the loop. And I noticed that Emily would get to talk to every single person, and then I would know that like whenever someone would go home, like whenever Liska went home, I just automatically knew like Emily probably had something to do with that, and she was one of the 3 votes that voted for Liska to go home. And she was like very vocal about like how well she did in Survivor Brooklyn South. And it was just all these different signs that were like being thrown at me to like tell me, hey, she's a threat. Like Kyle's a threat too, but Kyle is kind of like, I'm on to like Kyle's bullshit, and I feel like others would be as well. But while I'm on to Emily's bullshit as well, I don't think anybody else is paying attention to her. So that's kind of why she was like on top of she was on a higher level on my pedestal to go home than Kyle was.
Yeah. Ben, do you think Dresden and Emily made that the best call there in that moment to vote out Emily?
Yeah, I think so. I think like I think that you could even tell from that Pink trio with a lot of the confessionals that, for instance, that Alejandro had, where he was talking about how, oh, Emily is my shield. Like I think everybody kind of saw Emily as the like kind of ringleader for that group. And you know, the best chance you can have to really like maybe flip something around for the next vote, I think, is to take somebody like Emily out. That way that you can kind of get your voice out there a little bit better, and you don't have her voice kind of, you know, being the one that everyone's just going to.
So I want to talk about the challenge that we had here. First of all, Chris and Joe, I know, amazing job with these blocks. Like these motherfuckers were heavy and they hurt to carry. Like, and you can see that. Okay, so this was my dream for this challenge that didn't happen because it was so late at night. But what I wanted was for every single blindfolded person to like have to run out and grab a block and then come back blindfolded, and then like create like a chain of people of like blindfolded, blind leading to blind, and then you had to get back to the start, and then you could all take off your blindfolds and complete the puzzle. But because it was so dark, we couldn't do any movement, and so like it had to just be like, all right, you guys are blindfolded. And I don't think this is on camera. I went up to every single person and went like this and like went in their face to like see if they would react to me.
Yeah, I remember you like did like a punch. And so a few people.
And nobody reacted. So I knew that everybody couldn't see anything.
Well, the thing, originally it was supposed to be at the beach. You know, it was supposed to be on the beach or in the grass field. And like you said, blindfolded. It was going to be a lot more exciting and more dramatic. But because we lost daylight, we had no other choice but to do it in the backyard. And then we were like, okay, how can we make this work in this small backyard? And I will say that it's not like the best challenge, but like the concept of using the insanity cube from the show, I thought was more of the exciting point. And to have them blindfolded, it just kind of added like a different element, especially with the Pink Tribe, because they were all new to each other competing together. So I thought that was sort of another interesting point. I don't know if you guys caught it, but I think the best part of that challenge was Jack trying to lead the new Pink Tribe. And he's like laughing, he's having a good time, he's like chatting about something. And then Sarah's like moving her hands around, like, come on, let's keep it moving. Yeah. And then Paddock is like, oh, did I hit you? And Jack is like, no, you just like kind of turned it funny. And I'm just thinking, if I was any of them, like in my head, I'm like, what the hell is up with Jack here? Like, why did you guys choose Jack as the
Sarah and I watched this episode together, and we were both losing our shit over Jack. I love Jack so much, but girl, some pep in your step. Let's go. Preston, how did it feel being blindfolded in this moment? Jack was so polite. He kept being like, move it this way. Thank you.
He did.
Dresden, how did you feel in this challenge being blindfolded?
Well, I would say I felt vulnerable, but it wasn't anything I wasn't already used to in the game. So just dealt with it, and I knew we were gonna lose. Like as soon as Jack stopped, like it's maybe like after a couple of directions from Jack, and I love you to death, Jack, for watching this. But after a couple moves, I was just thinking, I don't think Jack knows what he's doing. And so I was just like, oh, we're gonna lose, man. And we ended up
so I think this is an interesting challenge because it actually has this sort of hack ability that like some challenges in Survivor do, where you see that what Bennett would do is he would like touch the player, because the only thing you weren't allowed to do as the person who could see was touch the block, but you could touch your players. So you could move somebody the way that you see, I think Bennett and Alejandro do it a little bit, and like physically just move their body to get them out of the way. So they're almost just like piece holders. And that's what Bennett, I think, really does well in this challenge. And that's why he wins it. And Jack was just so polite and just being like, okay, did you flip it like counterclockwise? Who the fuck knows what counterclockwise is, let alone when you can see, let alone blindfolded. Like, I love him so much. And I was like, oh my God, this is brutal to watch. Because I was really rooting for you guys. Because I knew that it would be a double tribal. And I was like, who the fuck are the 8 of them going to vote out? That would be really exciting. And then you guys are losing. I'm like, well, all right, this is going to be bad for someone.
Seriously.
Also, Chris, those colors you chose were so hard to tell apart.
Okay,
I'm not the only one that thought that.
Okay, I understand that. I do understand that. At the time, we were getting a lot of paint. It was very expensive, and Walmart had like a really good sale on some colors, so I just picked those. But I will tell you that I just 3 days ago painted all of them. So they are now like solid, very distinct colors. So it's a lot easier. Well, I guess a challenge that's going to be in season 5 now, but who really cares there?
Well, we changed the colors, so it's not like we can copy it. Like, good luck.
Exactly.
Have fun. So Dresden, did you see this twist coming of like 2 tribes were going to go to tribal council? Because we announced that only 1 tribe is going to be immune, and this was definitely based on season 38 and the sort of what sends Big Wendy home in Survivor 38. So did you see this coming at all as like this? I know that this was probably what's going to happen.
Like whenever
that like 1 tribe was going to win, but then 2 tribes would go to tribal council together and vote just 1 person out.
See it. Well, yeah, I was pretty sure that one of us would be like 1 person from the 8 of us that lost would be getting eliminated. Mm-hmm. I was just hoping it wouldn't be me, and it was, I think, because my mind was so frazzled, and I think after we lost, like I really just wanted to make sure that Jack and Sarah would like vote with me and Emily, and I'm glad that they did. I will say, I don't think it was shown, but initially I did want to vote out Andrea, and I did pitch that.
Yep.
But because Sarah and Emily specifically were concerned about all the girls that were getting eliminated, we changed it to
Kyle. Yeah.
Kyle. Okay, that just brings up my favorite moment of the entire episode. You guys discuss all the girls being voted out, and you say, I am basically one of the girls. If I would have curled my hair coming out here, and I watch that back, and I laugh every single time I hear you say that. It's the funniest thing in the world.
Oh man. Well, I think like that just shows like how you had talked about you connected with Sarah early in the day, but like that underdog tribe is really the underdogs, and you guys get along so well. I'm curious if Paddock is watching this, because Paddock says, I won't flip on you guys, I won't go to Rocks. And obviously Paddock has the extra vote, but I'm wondering if Paddock would have flipped had she not had the sort of extra vote. But Dresden, from your perspective, I want to know like how you felt, because I feel like what everyone's doing is basically reassuring you we're not going to vote for you, because you know, and I think rightfully so, that they're definitely on the other tribe going to target you and try and vote you out.
Mm-hmm.
How did it feel?
I mean, it was very stressful having to like go through that like tribal council. And the thing is, like, Jack and Sarah, even though I was like a little worried about them, they were kind of the least of my worries, because that the other tribe still consisted of people that had voted for me before. And so I knew it would be easy for them to just throw my name and try to get me out again, knowing that I didn't have an idol. And that whole situation was stressful. I try to remain hopeful, and I would have made it through that if Alejandro didn't have an idol, because Sarah and Jack did follow their word and vote with me. And being told to by Davey and Alejandro and everybody else that was probably convinced them not to do so.
Well, and something I want to know from you, Ben. So Paddock says, I wouldn't have flipped. I was itching for Rocks. But what Emily does in this episode is Emily doesn't tell. So Emily has the vote doubler. She doesn't tell Sarah until at tribal council. And I'm watching this with Sarah, and Sarah goes like, I think that's the moment that Emily tells me. And it's like, there's like 2 minutes left until they go to vote, right? Like it's like no time at all. So Emily doesn't tell anybody that she does have this extra vote. And she only tells Sarah at the last possible second. What would you have done if you had this extra vote? Like, would you have done what Emily did, or do you think that maybe there's a strategy to reassuring your foursome that you're voting with them and that they have the advantage?
Now looking back at it, I would have probably. Now looking back at it, I would have told Sarah and Jack not to say anything to the other tribe, or at least try to tell them, hey, we're voting for Andrea. And then I still would have used the vote doubler against Kyle just to have that like that locked in vote against Kyle.
Yeah.
And I think what ultimately like led to me being eliminated was Sarah did tell Davey and did tell Davey that we were voting for Kyle.
Yeah.
And Alejandro knew who to use his idol on.
Yeah, Ben, how do you feel about the extra vote in this situation?
Well, I think what Emily probably was thinking was she wanted to wait as long as possible to make the decision on whether she was playing it or not. I think she probably told Sarah the second she decided she was going to play it. And I don't really think it matters, right? Because you have to wait for the revote to go to Rocks anyways. So like it doesn't really like whether or not you know that like your side has the votes because of the twist or because of the advantage. Like you're still gonna vote with them at least for the first vote, right? Presumably. So but yeah, I do think, and this is something Alex brought up earlier in the chat, there's like very little reason to tell the other tribe who the real target is if you're like trying to flip somebody, and because like you could just tell them a fake name, and if they do flip, you still win the vote with like a 4-3-1, which is just as good as a 5-3, 5-3. So yeah, definitely. Like if there was like a mistake that was made, like that's probably it. But like that's a very difficult like thing to think of in the moment. I think to make that call.
Tribal councils are just a mess, regardless of how messy
I wonder, do you think that Sarah was trying to like say, hey, Alejandro and Davey, like maybe you guys should flip and vote for Kyle? Like Kyle and Andre are the only two blue here. Maybe Sarah was thinking like how old Pink was trying to get rid of blue. So that's maybe my thought process is like maybe she felt like she had enough pull with them to say, hey, us four voting for Kyle, you guys could just jump on board. Kyle's gone. And then like, I don't know. I feel like in Alejandro's spot, he found the idol. It's like he could just let Kyle go home in this moment and keep an idol, or he could gain like a really strong ally, but he still has Jack and Sarah. So I feel like there's just so many different ways that this could have been situated or thought of. I mean, I don't know what you guys think.
Well, so I talked to Sarah, of course, a little bit this weekend, and something interesting she had said to me was that she did tell them the plan, yes, and I think it's because you see in this episode, which I love watching the blue tribe talk about like what is going to happen, and Davey and Alejandro, like there's no reason Sarah doesn't want to work with us. But in reality, Sarah knows that Davey, Alejandro, and Emily were a threesome, and she and Jack were on the outs of that. So Sarah is struggling with this idea of like, how do I get these people to want to work with me, even though I know that I'm not as important to them? And I think Sarah had to grapple with a lot in this vote. But what I have to say is like, as much as Dresden, you were somebody that Sarah liked and wanted to work with, I do think to an extent, you going home is the least impactful on Sarah's game out of, Jack, Sarah, and Paddock. Sarah losing you is the person who sort of is hurt the least by this. So it's this weird moment where it's like, yes, we all care about who goes home very much and who we vote for and all this stuff. But also, I think to an extent, Sarah, which also means like maybe Sarah should have just voted for you instead of like try to get them to vote for Kyle. I don't know. It was very messy. And in their defense as well, 2 idols had just been played, and I don't think anybody else had thought about the 3rd idol unless they had the clue. So I don't think anybody else was thinking about the idea that another idol might be out there, especially considering the Pink Tribe found the clue and didn't find an idol. I think it is a big factor as well. Kyle saying Alejandro was my hero. But yeah, lie and say you're voting for Andrea. Like that's the easy solution.
Yeah, I agree. Like you'd lose nothing. Like from Sarah's position, you lose nothing by just saying that you're voting for Andrea instead. If they vote with you, then you win, and if they don't, then they play the idol wrong. So you win both ways.
Yeah, that would have been fun if they played the idol wrong. What a messy and you would have laughed your ass off if they play the idol wrong. I feel like that would have been such a great. We would have gotten like a great Dresden moment if that happened.
I'm curious, like if the vote doubler didn't happen and the idol didn't happen, if it went 4-4, and it would somebody have flipped?
Yes. So if you were at this tribal council and Emily said she wouldn't have flipped, Kyle, Alejandro, like Davey. Well, Kyle doesn't matter. You're not voting. Let us know if you would have flipped, Jack.
Because my theory is that Alejandro, Davey, or Andrea would have flipped. That's my thought in that situation. But I could be wrong.
Dresden, did Paddock ever tell you that there was going to be an extra vote? Did she ever let you know before the votes were read?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Or no, she didn't. But I think because like as you see from the beginning, I think it was taking a while for Paddock to warm up to me. Yes. Like Paddock was probably one of the first people in this game that I did talk to. And I feel like me and her, like the stars aligned for us to have some type of relationship because we both found idols very early in the game. And so with that, I just assumed because we found idols, we would work together. And I think she had her own agenda, but as the game goes on, I think people see that Paddock is slowly starting to trust me a little bit more.
Yep.
And I think that, and I stand by like this statement, like if she wouldn't have like trusted me as much as it probably like didn't look that way, she wouldn't have used her vote doubler.
Yeah.
And I think she used that, and it, of course, like she probably wanted Kyle to go home, but now that we know that like the merge is going to be like the next round due to like the preview or whatever, I'm someone that could have benefited her in the merge.
Definitely, especially considering that Kyle voted for Paddock, because in the split vote, Andrea and Kyle voted for Paddock, so Kyle sort of threw the first stone in a way. So Ben, I'm curious, like, I actually am curious about your opinion on this as well, Dresden. Should Alejandro have played the idol for Kyle? Is it better to lose Kyle and have Dresden stay in the game than it is to potentially keep Kyle around and lose an idol?
The thing is, if I was in Alejandro's situation, I would have kept the idol to myself. Just because, like, we were all, like, under the assumption that we were probably going to be entering merge soon. And who's to say that Kyle won't go with other people that he started this game with? Or who's to say that anybody that Alejandro might have considered using the idol on, that they won't flip? So the thing is, and I guess it's just because I played idol on myself. I would have kept the idol for myself, because at the end of the day, like, only one person can win the game, and safety is one of the biggest factors that play into Survivor. And if someone else is safe, that means that you're not safe.
Yeah.
So.
Great point.
Ben, how do you feel?
Yeah, I would go the other way. I think he made the right choice. Well, I mean, we'll see. But I think that we'll find out next week, Alex. That's right. I think that like having that kind of block of 4 headed into a merge is probably slightly more valuable than an idol. We are already kind of creating this 4-4 split with this group anyways. So you're already kind of putting it on the table that you're not going to be able to work with, like, for instance, Sarah and Jack going forward. So I think that your best chance at like getting a majority in the merge is having that group of 4, plus maybe bringing in like Kai and Bennett, for instance, as like a 5 and a 6, and having Kyle there to facilitate that. I think is probably the Alejandro and Davey pair's best chance of being able to have a majority at the merge vote. But we'll see. Maybe having the idol would have been better. We'll find out.
Yes, and Emily says, didn't people think Andrea voted against Kyle here? Chris, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
First of all, yes, that is true. But I'm like so confused why everybody would think Andrea would be the first one to flip on Kyle and not like Davey. I mean, obviously Alejandro plays an idol on Kyle, so it's like, why would Alejandro be the one? So it really boils down to Andrea versus Davey. So I don't know. I this is going to be a very chaotic episode in regards to that moment, because everybody talks about it throughout the night and throughout the morning about how Andrea is an actress and how she's lying to everybody and how she flipped on her number 1 ally in the game. And you even see in the preview, like, they confront each other about it, and it does have a lasting effect in the game. Whether they're the next 2 out or not, it is talked about. And it's another like crazy chaotic moment that we're known for.
Yeah, I think that's also something that like you never really get from like real Survivor, because I feel like sometimes with like extra votes, and I see this all the time in real Survivor, people just like willingly own up to like whatever they did at Tribal Council. And like Paddock, I think it's going to be interesting to see if Paddock ever owns up to using the vote doubler. But like once, like, it's just so funny to me that they're like, oh, of course Andrea flipped on her closest ally to send him home, that makes complete sense to me. And like in a real game, maybe you'd have more time to think about it, or you could press a little harder or think more about maybe there's an advantage. Because I also think what's really interesting here, right, is that we saw it in the episode before where people thought that Paddock got the idol from exile. So it's this weird thing where the idol almost covers up the extra vote because nobody can conceive that Paddock found the idol separately and then got also another advantage at exile. I love it. I love the sort of chain of butterfly effect events that this all results in. And we'll see it play out on the merge. But going back, Dresden, I want to talk about, like, did you have, like, any memory you wanted to talk about or, like, moments in this game? Because, first of all, I think we haven't talked about it, but, like, the absolute, like, stone cold, like, heart you had to hold on to your idol when Liska goes, I thought was really impressive. And then to be ready to play at the next round. So talk to me about the idol and holding on to it after the swap, because I was really impressed by the way you played.
It was nerve-wracking, and I had a lot going on. I was so bipolar during that round, because I remember at the beginning of the round, I was thinking, oh, Liska's here. Like, I was thinking, like, even if Liska does go, like, it wouldn't be too bad for my game because she knows I have the idol and she's the only one. But after we lost the challenge, and to see her like really like wanting to vote for Kyle and work with me, like I saw a whole nother Liska, and so that's what made me change my mind about her. So in the event that she was voted out, it like made me upset. And I think there was another thing I was gonna say. I think I had forgot. I'll bring it up if it comes to my mind again. But there was something I was gonna say about that moment.
Well, I find it so interesting, and I'm dying to know what you thought of this all, Ben. But that Liska basically lies to protect you.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. So yeah, I remember that too. So we were like, when we were like having our swap meal or whatever, she proceeded to tell them about how Sam found the idol. And I'm just thinking, y'all probably see the look on my face too. I'm just thinking,
oh yeah, you're just like clutching your water bottle like this.
Like, I was just like, oh, I have nothing to do with that. just nod. And I think I had expressed this to her, but like, I do appreciate her for like kind of taking the fall for that. She didn't know it at the time, but I think that's kind of like led her getting the majority of the vote, steering her vote off instead of me, because she was the one that kind of started the story about Sam.
Yes.
Right.
So Ben, what did you think of like Dresden's ability to hold on to this idol and then basically and not advantage Geddon, but vote out, Emily F with the result?
Well, I mean, I think that like that move is definitely like the highlight of the pre-merge, in my opinion. Like that moment it's so funny because throughout the episode you can kind of see it coming, right? Where it like becomes more and more apparent that the other five are just going to split the votes between Dresden and Paddock, and you as the audience know they both have idols, and there is like this undercurrent throughout the episode of like, oh, Emily F is like this huge threat. Alejandro mentions she's a shield, and like you can kind of see, oh my god, this is like very telegraphed downfall ended kind of. And then you get to the tribal council, and they both play their idols, and you see everybody's faces when both idols are played, and it's just such a huge moment.
And I do have a little story about that. And I think this swap is what ultimately led to like my downfall too. Because while Emily is more social and like more of an extrovert, I am more like in my shell and I keep to myself. And I think that's what made people want to like work with her a little bit more. And what probably led to like the next swap tribe that consisted of Andrea, Kyle, Davey, and Alejandro. That's what caused them to pick me to get votes instead of her, because she like did a really good job at just like being more like active towards them. But I just remember, like, I don't think it got shown, or I don't even remember if the camera was on us, but I remember, and I think Davey had mentioned something about it during that episode. But like after we like lose a challenge and we are ready to like talk about like votes, Emily has to go to the bathroom, and I'm just thinking like I'm not talking to nobody until I talk to Emily. And so Davey comes up to me, and I'm just like,
this is the episode.
I can't talk to anybody until I talk to Emily, and I think that's what rubbed Davey the wrong way.
That was one of the funniest, like,
Davey,
awkward
if
moments.
you're watching this, I do apologize for that. But like, I was so butthurt about like Lista being eliminated. I was like, I'm not talking to anybody but Emily.
I thought that was so funny. Davey's like, "Who? Pick somebody. Pick a name. Any name." You wouldn't give him anything, and that infuriated him because he's a very like a dominant player, and he wants answers when he asks questions, and you were not giving into that. And I think that moment is what writ you off for him.
Sure. Which is so unfortunate, but it's also like that's like the hardest part about Survivor games, right? Is like, I vote for you, you vote for me. If we can move past this, maybe something could happen. But like so often, you just can't move past the idea of somebody voting for you. And actually, it's funny because I do think, Dresden, that you and Davey are very similar in that way, where you're like, don't, if you want to work with me, don't vote for me. And like you wouldn't tolerate, neither of you will tolerate any bullshit. And it's just funny that you're both just like bullshitting each other, and then nobody will tolerate each other. It's so funny to me.
Okay, really quickly, can we talk about Dresden playing the idol and the thing that he said while he played the idol? It's still the funniest thing like anyone's ever said while playing an idol. Like I'd love to go home and binge watch Sex in the City. I'd love to binge watch Sex in the City with you. We should watch the new series together, Dresden. That would be great.
Yes. I was like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But
that's also great.
If I'm not wrong, the person that I forgot what I said.
The person that is wrong is gonna be sorry tonight, or
I'd rather be safe than sorry, because the person that's gonna be sorry is the person that's gonna go home tonight.
Oh, it's like poetry.
It was great. I mean, it was it's everything you could dream for. I feel like for the Survivor game.
It had got cut out because, like, I think whenever I went to vote for Emily F, I had quoted like a Nicki Minaj song.
I was just gonna bring that up. I have it on my phone, but I don't know if I play it, you'll be able to hear it. But I want to say the whole season, that was one of the best.
I mean, Dresden, we will release at the end of the season an entire voting confessionals video, so you'll get to watch your voting confessionals back, and you know, people get to see the highlight reel. But what is the quote?
It was something about, just like Nicki Minaj said, these people are trying to make me have to be the bad guy.
Yes. I remember it was like, I think it was like Chun-Li, like that song.
Oh yeah, right? Bad guy Chun-Li. Something.
I think it had just came out like a few months before that. You quoted, and I was like, oh, we have a Barb here.
And I had like, whenever I had wrote down Emily's name, I had put like, I think I had wrote like the F looked like a P for some reason, so I had to do it all over again.
Yeah, you had to vote twice because the first one it looked like it was a P, and I was like, "Are you voting for Paddock or the other one?" And then we were all like, "Oh, okay." So yeah,
something else
you have to do the Nicki Minaj twice.
Yeah, something else I want to talk about is that in this episode, I don't know if you caught it, Ben. Now, Alejandro looks like he's really mean and he's laughing at Dresden being voted out. But what actually happened is that Alejandro voted for Desmond.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
Desmond in this game. But Alejandro is it's so awful because Alejandro's clearly just so tired, and he sees that he accidentally wrote the wrong name and he just loses his shit and starts laughing. But Dresden is just sitting there like, I'm getting voted out right now. Can you not laugh? Like, it's so funny to look at everybody's expression.
I was like acting an ass whenever Emily related, because I was sitting like, yes. And then I think at one point, because like a lot of people spelled my name wrong. And I was just like, my name right. I was kind of an asshole too in like Alejandro's defense, but it was just at the end of the day, it's just all fun and games.
Yeah,
that was so funny.
I think spelling the name wrong is like somewhat defensible. I think saying Desmond, there's no defense for that. That's
Yes.
You know what? I have to watch his voting confessional and like find out, did he say Desmond or did he say Dresden? I just know I remember Alex and I being in the voting booth and we were like, who the fuck is Desmond? Like, is he seriously writing Desmond? And then we were both like, should we make him write it again or should we just like put it in there? And they were like, no, we should put it in there because that is just like hilarious. No offense, Dresden, but it was just like, it just shows like how tired and how chaotic things were.
Yeah. Well, and something else I thought that was so funny is that like Jacqueline and Cody on Survivor Cast were like, oh, do they have a list of how to spell people's names that people are looking at? It's like, no, because this is an egregious misspelling of Dresden's name. There will be worse ones to come. Like there are some bangers coming up. And so that's what always made me laugh is like, oh no, none of these people could spell for whatever reason this season. Like it's only going to get worse from here. And I can't wait to see that.
I think I do want to spoil like one little thing. I think it's next episode, but somebody starts calling Paddock Paddocker, and I'm like, where the hell does that come from? Paddocker? Oh my god, it's so funny.
Dresden, I want to ask you about because you played another game. A year ago or less than a year ago? In Aunt Jackie Productions, right?
Oh no, I'm playing this October. So they released the cast like months ahead of time, but I will be playing in Mayhem Manor this October, and I'll be representing New York.
There we go. I hope someone makes an alliance with you and is like, I saw you on this show. You're amazing. We should be. I would do it if I had seen you play. I'd be like, all right, let's go.
That's the exciting part. I think going forward, people are going to recognize you.
Work with me right off the bat. I will say that I'm going to try to talk to more people this time around because I learned my lesson from the last time.
Ben, is there anything else that we should talk about? Any strategy thoughts you have going into? I think this is a great opportunity. Ben, who do you think might go home next? What do you think might happen?
Yeah, I didn't know if I mentioned that earlier when I was talking about the Alejandro's decision or not, but I think that probably the people I would guess are in the most trouble going into this merge are Billy and TJ would be my guess. I don't know, like it's kind of a coin flip in my mind which of them people like kind of view as more of a threat than the other. But I think as a pair, they're probably who I would expect to get targeted next just because of the like kind of orientation of where people are. I think the only way that they aren't the target is if this like new threesome of Paddock, Sarah, and Jack go over to the other tribe because they just voted against Kyle in this foursome. Then maybe somebody like Kyle or Alejandro could be a target. But I think that in most kind of permutations I can make in my mind. Sorry, TJ. I see TJ and Billy in the chat. But yeah, that's kind of. I think most of the permutations I'm like predicting in my head lead to one of Billy or TJ probably getting targeted. But you never know.
My question to you, Ben, is really quickly. Who do you think is the most safe for at least the first vote? Like that, like guaranteed they're in the top 10, who's the most safe?
Honestly, probably Paddock. It's like she's the only one who's not in a pair, right? I feel like everybody's gonna want to break up a pair, and because you can't really form like a real majority that doesn't have like these pairs in it, anyways. I think it's very unlikely she gets targeted. Other than that, I think that basically like anybody who is probably seen as like the less threatening among their pair is probably pretty safe. But I don't know who that would necessarily be. I think that a lot of them are kind of equal. So Yeah.
Well, and I think it's interesting that you talk about pairs because I think in a way, Dresden, you were Paddock's pair, and you got God, and they took you out, and it is I think been a really interesting idea of like, is Paddock going to be, because we're going into this merge at 11, so you need an alliance of 6 to get things done. But I think if you really want to succeed, an alliance of 7 or even 8 is the way to go, and we'll see if Paddock sort of losing Dresden opens her up to opportunities, or if people sort of see her as expendable. But Dresden, that's something I kind of wanted to know is like, when you get voted out, is Paddock like the number one person you're rooting for at in that moment, when you think about who you wanted to win after you're voted out?
When I was voted out, Paddock was the person that I was rooting for. And because that was really the only person that I had like actually like could consider if I had to like claim somebody as like my number one. She was really like the only one. So because of that reason, if I had anybody to root for, it was her.
Yeah, and it's a shame because you didn't get to really play with like a good chunk of the cast. I mean, you did get to play with like Jack and Sarah right at the end, but Bennett, Kai, Matt, to an extent, you never really got to spend any time with. And like, I feel like if this game had gone differently for you, where maybe Orange is in a beneficial spot coming into that swap, and Pink picks you guys instead of Blue, like who knows what would have happened. But I mean, we felt so blessed that you joined us for this game and we're on this cast, and like, you always, I think, brought a smile to Chris and I's face. And I just remember watching you get voted out, and I was like, I don't want to lose Kyle. I don't want to lose Dresden. I don't want to lose anybody right now. This vote fucking sucks. I was so like, let's just put off the vote. Let's not have it happen. Final 12, everybody wins. Like, it just was such a horrible spot. But Dresden, like, you played great. I'm so glad that you took the chance to like play this with us, especially like as your first time.
Yes.
Anything else that we need to talk about, guys, before we hit the hay, we go to bed? There's still 5 more days until the next Survivor New York episode. But Ben, do you think that? I guess I'm curious what I don't want to say like what tribe color, but like what, like out of like the former Pink, the former Blue, the former Orange, who do you think has the most power going into this merge?
I think it depends. I think it depends on whether, like, how close Bennett and Kai feel to TJ and Billy. Because I think they could potentially, as a pair, Bennett and Kai, could have a lot of power if they, like, jump ship and go with this foursome. And then you'll have, like, this 4 Blues originally with Bennett, Kai, Kyle, and Andrea, alongside Davey and Alejandro. That's 6 out of 11. If they do that, I think that's a huge amount of power. And then within that 6, they have 4 out of 6 as well. But I don't know if that's necessarily something that they will do. Otherwise, I think if it sticks to this kind of foursome over here, this like new trio in the middle could be the deciders for which of these sides ends up winning the vote at the merge here. So I think those are probably the main power groups in my mind, is Bennett and Kai. If they want to make a move, I think they have the power to do so. And then this new trio.
Yes. And then Kyle says to you, Dresden, nothing but respect for you. You played a great game. You guys were always at each other's throats, but I think it was really fun.
I have love for Kyle.
and that's it. I mean, Chris, new episode Friday night at 8 p.m. I made GIFs. I got back into the GIF swing of things. So if anyone is welcome to, if you think there's a moment that should be a GIF, send me a DM, and I will clip it and put it on our Giphy page. We're just at Survivor New York on Giphy. I've made clips of Dresden. I've got people gift everywhere, left and right. So if you want something in a GIF format, just let me know and I'll put it up there. Guys, thank you for being here. Thank you to everybody who listens. Check out if you've enjoyed our coverage and you want to think about watching something else, Survivor Cast International does a great job talking about this season. They love Dresden. I'm sure they're devastated. I can't wait to hear their new episode.
Anybody who wants to do this, apply and take a risk like I did.
Amen.
I would definitely do something like this again. Whether it's Survivor New York or another Survivor LRG.
Yes.
I don't think this will be the last time that people see Dresden. So
good.
I can't wait.
Good, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys